Welcome to Impactology Live. Here we are, and a special welcome to everyone from near and far joining us, and in particular India, for this presentation conversation. I'm going to start off with a question, but I'm not going to expect anything to come back from the audience. So what do you get when you fuse passion, energy, and a strong will to make the world a better place for women? And our next guest speaker fits that bill beautifully. We'd love to welcome Harpreet Ghumman to Impactology Live. Harpreet, hello, how are you?
Hi George, hi Rita, I'm doing great.
Great to see you,
and thank you so much for having me here on this platform.
Pleasure, thank you. Before we start our conversation, I'm just going to give some background in terms of Harpreet, though we will hear a lot more of her own background and story as well from herself. Harpreet is an organisational development expert, diversity and inclusion strategist, and a specialist at developing frameworks for leadership, performance and culture. In her 19 plus years of experience, Harpreet has enabled organisations including Vodafone, Telenor and Raymond to become future ready. As a respected leader, her simple, powerful messages about leadership and women are making a difference. Her approach to life and work can be described in the form of a hashtag unapologetically Harpreet. Harpreet, thank you for joining us. And just to build on that backstory for those who are joining us who are not familiar with who you are, who is Harpreet and what's your story?
So thanks, George, for the grand introduction. And hello, everyone there. And let me tell you, that's my LinkedIn introduction. And I often say that, I'm a gypsy stuck in corporate clutter with style to keep and stories to share. That's true, Harpreet. At a personal level, if I have to say a story about Harpreet has not lived a life through a rule book given to her by a society or anybody else. She has created her own rule book. And her rule book has nothing. It is just blank pages. And it just has the underlying mantra which says, believe in yourself, trust your heart, and the time is now. And it doesn't have words like no, impossible, difficult, and create a life that you want to have for yourself. So that's where I am, and that's who I am.
And Harpreet, if we can actually, if we can go back to your early childhood, can you share with us your background and your influence of your parents and your sibling as well, and how that shaped you into the individual that you are today?
So, George, I always say money is not the only thing which is privilege. Privilege is also being brought up in an environment where you can be yourself. And I consider myself very privileged. My father was in the army. And so which means every 2 years we would get transferred. And talking about a country like India, which is complex, we have about 8 religions. We have about, 22 languages, 3,000 castes, 22 subcastes. I got to know of my subcaste when I was 15 or 16. We didn't know because army is religion agnostic. Every 2 years, by the time, as a child, I would settle down and make friends. And my dad would say, hey, pack your bags and time for you to move. So I think it really made me agile, adaptable in those sense. Second, in army, as they always say, your job is secured, but not your life, right? And in the army, it was always about living for the country, the unit that you posted in, and then your family. So all these things have really ingrained resilience, sacrifice, being courageous, taking risks. So I think I feel really privileged having that background, and that's where I am. And in terms of my mother, who came from a very simple family, my grandfather was a farmer and not very educated, but extremely wise. And having said that, knowing that, patriarchy is rooted back in India, I was privileged to be raised without discrimination. In fact, maybe my brother will have stories to say that, my parents were more biased to me. I think I was given a platform or a space to be who I am. So I think these things are really the army background and my parents treating me like a being and not like women. In fact, I just to share with you, in Sanskrit and in Hindi, there's a way you speak. A guy would say something, and to the same, there's a different language for a boy. I had started speaking like my brother. My parents never objected me that you've started speaking like, your brother. It's like boys speak like that. So, because he was 1.5 years elder to me, and I would just copy what he would do. So we weren't told that this is what a girl's supposed to be doing, or this is something what a boy's supposed to be doing. I think all these values have really ingrained, values like being courageous, resilient. And, yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah. And Harpreet, given those early experiences with your dad in the army, can you recall some of your aspirations growing up and what you wanted to do?
So being in the army, we were aware, we were cocooned. I can say that we were in a very protected environment. I didn't know what's happening. I didn't know what the brands are and stuff, but I knew what sports is. I had tried all the sports, all possible sports. The exposure was immense. And to be very honest, I didn't have any aspirations. I just wanted to be a good human being, and I just wanted to be happy in what I'm doing. I just wanted to feel confident. I was just I enjoyed my childhood. I enjoyed studying my graduation. I enjoyed doing my master's. I don't think we had a pressure of, wanting to do this, be that. We were not brought up in a very competitive spirit. So for me, I think only when I didn't know my first job, what it looks like. What am I going to be doing? Right? And yes, one thing which has always been, whatever I picked up, it had to be great. I would put my 200%. I would not give up. I would always try. So I think those things have really helped me being where I am. In fact, one line which has been constant throughout my career. In my first job, I was asked, Harpreet, what do you want to become? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to be happy in what I'm doing and to be able to add value. The line continues. This is exactly the same what I, say today.
I think, Harpreet, that understanding that purpose, a lot of people don't come to that until a lot later in life. So the fact that you had that from such an early point in your career and you've been able to continue on with that, I imagine it has helped manage expectations potentially, your own expectations, but maybe those of others too.
I'm sure, yeah, absolutely. And I say, I do say that I have been privileged, without having any expectations, but yes, we were told to be on our own. We did not have that extra pampering or support. You have to try, you have to give it a shot. So we were not spoon-fed, but we were said, try.
Yeah.
And, get connected to yourself. And I think the focus was a lot on being a good human being. And I think, the way my parents had role modeled, and that had a great impact on me. And in fact, one thing was there in me, I can never let my parents down, and be my parents, which means let anybody down, be it people where I'm working or at a personal level. And so for me, it was about enjoying what I'm doing and being conscious of the impact that I'm having on people.
Harpreet, as a senior executive in different organisations, particularly around the area of diversity and inclusion, the next question I have for you is around that very topic. Now, this is a topic that's close to my heart for many different reasons. I think here, and I'll speak from an Australian context and perspective, we've done quite a bit to shift the dial and make sure that there are more women represented in senior executive and board roles, but I think we still have a long way to go. How has the topic of women in leadership evolved in India over the last few years? What are you seeing? What are the trends that you're seeing? And are there any hopes and aspirations in terms of still continuing maybe to shift the dial?
Okay, so, if you look back, we had a women prime minister 50 years back, and she served the tenure for about 15 to 17 years. Unfortunately, today, if you look at the political environment, we still are talking about 22% of women representation in the parliament. And even that too, they're not holding meaty roles. They have roles like social affairs, and all the good and the meaty roles are being held by men. So that's the current status. Yes, a lot has happened in last 10, 15 years, right? And if I talk about the corporate world, again, a lot has happened in last 10, 15 years. I'm not okay with the pace. Even today, we are talking about 24% of the women. And there have been enough facts, Harvards of the world and Stanfords of the world have said that, on the leadership competencies, women have rated a notch better, right? When we know that, I'm not saying women are superior. I don't believe in that. I'm saying women do make good leaders. And so what are we waiting for, and what is the reason? So definitely, it is the patriarchy which comes in. There are these biases, unconscious, conscious biases, which needs to be addressed. And right now, the scenario, how I sense, there's too much of talking. The intent is there, but the intent has to get translated into action. I am impatient. When we got the voting right 100 years back, and we're still struggling to have women, in the top board. And as Ruthberg said, women has to be there where a decision needs to be made. We are living in a world created by men. So first we need to have representation, equal representation of people at the right places to create that inclusion. So I think work has happened. I'm not too happy. And I said, it's time that we really need to be taking some bold steps towards that.
I agree with you completely on that pace, without a doubt. We, in our conversation prior to this interview, we had a lengthy conversation about unconscious bias training. And I know here Australian organisations have spent a lot of money and time on introducing unconscious bias training in the hope that if we become more aware of our biases, our behaviour will change. What's been, as a D&I expert, diversity and inclusion expert, what's been your experience around unconscious bias training? Is it doing what it's intended to do?
So, when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, it's a very complex problem. It's not an individual issue. It has to be dealt at a systematic level. So for such a complex problem, we are applying a 2-day training of unconscious bias, and we're thinking things will change. So for me, yes, it is important to be aware, but like if we're expecting 2 days training or a week's training to change the DNA of the person, what he brings into work every day, it is not possible. And therefore, if you look back in last 10, 15 years, a lot of organizations, so back in India as well, they've invested a lot in unconscious bias training. So why I still don't see women in the top? Yes, that is an issue, but that just cannot be dealt by 2 days of training. What are we doing at a systematic level, at the community level, at the broad organization spectrum? So I really don't, if I have to start, and personally, when I had my way, when I was starting diversity and inclusion initiative back in the organization, I think, so for me, I didn't want to do a tick mark, right? And to be called, as a D&I-centric organization that you created, Harpreet. I said, we will do that parallelly, right? But let's just start working on things which is much more easier. And for me, it's like work on self. So I think I started with women. And yes, women would come and say, Harpreet, we have to work 10 times harder. I said, be it. You still get after working 10 times harder. But then don't wait for the world to change. That is not going to happen. Because it is not an individual issue, and we're dealing it like an individual issue. And we are coming up with these solutions like unconscious bias training. Right? I have a lot of biases. Now, being a D&I expert, having said that, I'm aware, but still it shows up. So, I really don't feel that just the unconscious bias training is good enough. Or a lot of things need to happen, parallelly around that. And we need to wear a big hat to be dealing things from multiple lenses and not just single lens.
Harpreet, when you talk about, from a training perspective, you talk about starting with the individual. What are some of the strategies that you're using within your current organisation, or even when you're mentoring and coaching individuals?
Okay, so my personal belief is that we have everything inside us. We have the skills, we have the ability. We just need to tap them where they are. It's like, I don't think that a woman needs, or anybody else for that matter, endorsement or from somebody else. I don't think somebody else can empower us. We have to empower ourselves, right? So one is that I wait for things to change. The other is I take charge of myself personally and professionally. I think I took this route, and I said, we took about 400 women, and and stories are very powerful. It was not a lecture training program. We worked on Shakti. Shakti is energy, masculine and feminine. They're inside you. You just need to see which is working, which is not working, and which is dominant, and activate. And the program was more about reflection. We said, you know what? These girls need to hear a lot of stories. They need to hear women who have become extraordinary from ordinary, right? That is the problem. Maybe, as I say, I was privileged enough to see when things were okay. Unfortunately, there are a lot of women, where male voice has been a dominant voice, their father's voice, and maybe their husband. That is the story they hold. So I think we created, aspects of, energy like Kali, Baglamukhi, and nothing religious about it. We picked up the trait, like Kali in India is about fighting inner demons. So one session would be focusing on about inner demons. We will have women from the outside world who kind of, did some extraordinary work, and parallelly started creating stories internally. I think all of us, if we look back, we have done something in our life, and we had internal stories and then reflecting on it. And this was a 15-month program. And a 15-month program later, I think, when I had conversation with these women in terms of what's happening, and they said, Harpreet, we now voice, we've been in the organization for 15 years. We could not speak for ourselves. So the problem was not outside, the problem was within. So I think the work was focused more on looking within and how do you empower yourself, not waiting for things to come, in plateau for you. So I think it worked very beautifully. And of course, we had to analyze, and I believe that we can't do without them. So we parallelly, I think I looped in 180 men leaders. I think it was very important. I wanted them to know that we're not discussing women issues, in these training programs, right? And I think, so parallelly, we kind of looped them in. We had a great support, systematically created a structure around it, and it has worked very beautifully for us. Good. And still a long way to go. I'm not saying we're perfected, but long way to go for us.
Yeah. That sounds like some really great work to make those inroads, and maybe to start challenging the status quo and how things are being done. From your career perspective, at a personal level, what steps and actions have you taken to further your career?
So honestly, Rita, I didn't manage my career. I managed myself. Career happened to me. I think my focus has always been to look inside me, and then see how am I reacting personally or professionally. Career just happened. I mean, when I meet somebody, people think that I've really planned, and no, I think the focus was just on me. So I, as a person, I reflect a lot. And if something goes wrong, first thing is, what is it I could have done to avoid this? Even if I know that the other person was wrong, right? I'm like, how can I avoid that? I can't change that person, but can I work around? These are the people I have to be working around. Right? So I think that really helped me. This is one strong aspect. And second, I think I gave my best at work, and I gave best to myself. So I'm not burnt out. I've never had a Monday blue. I can have a Friday blue or whatever. I think I've enjoyed working. I give my best to work. I take care of myself. And third, I followed my heart. I speak my mind. So there's nothing inside me. For me, I've been very clear. I need to sleep peacefully. Right? So which means I have to be conscious about my actions, the impact that I'm having and leaving on the other women. I think my focus was not on building on career, but the focus was on leaving a place in a better place or than it has been before. be it my conversation, be it interaction with my team, or any act I do. How is it helping the current situation and generations to follow? Yeah. And so that has been my mantra always.
Harpreet, for those that perhaps don't there are many that don't share that level of energy and confidence and self-belief and also purpose that you described there, which came out really strongly. What advice do you share with those people when you're talking to them again in a mentoring or coaching capacity?
So we are referring to the women leaders here?
Yeah, women leaders,
okay.
Or, women and men actually, those that don't have that self-confidence and energy.
Okay, so what I want to tell them, I wish you had seen me what I was at 2021. People would call me that I'm a mama's girl. Yes, I was given all that environment and stuff, extremely protected. And my parents would actually worry what would happen to my daughter. And considering the Indian society, what would happen when she gets married? She cannot deal with herself, and she will get used, right? This was like 20 years back. So what I want to say, you can work on your confidence, right? I think it's more than confidence. It's about having clarity what you want to do, not giving up, believing in yourself. All this will build the confidence in you. So I think people who have seen me 20 years back and people who see me right now, they see a drastic change. So I think I would want to say that, yes, I understand. And I hear from a lot of women that, we have been grown up, and yes, it has been unfortunate, but I think if you decided, you can work on it. So my advice, I would rather not like to give advice, but want to share what has really worked for me. I would say, dream big, have clarity of what you want to do, and don't wait. The time the thought comes to you, that is the right time for you to do it. Don't give it up. It's not going to be easy. It has never been easy for anyone else. It's not been easy for me, but I wanted to do it. So you will have to be persistent in doing that. And I would say, you rather leave the world, with memories and not dreams with you. So, right? And two friends, which have really helped me, which I can say, if you want to, I would suggest having two friends for your life. And these friends are not very easy. Right? But these friends are going to be lifelong friends, and they mean well. Number one, courage. Number two, confidence. Never leave them. They will be with you end of your life if you take them along. And I'm sure there's no looking back. So for me, it's dream big. I think we just don't dream and create your own rule book, create your own life. Don't be a victim, work for it. All of us have gone through it. And let me tell you, I was talking to George and Rita the other day, while I say I don't regret any of my decisions, but not that life has been great. I've had to deal like everybody else blows in my life. I think what you learn from that incident and how it shapes you is very important. And I believe that, and I'm a big time optimist. So I think maybe that, along with being courageous and confident, it really helps me. And just to share, all the women out there and the men leaders out there are days, when I feel really crappy and I go to my room, lock myself, and I cry. But the timeline is not more than a day. I don't allow myself to be in that state more than a day. So I think this has really helped me. And this is what I would say that, the biggest enemy is, we are the biggest enemy. There's nobody else who can stop you from being who you are at a personal level or a professional level. And
that's great advice, Harpreet.
You can try it out.
Harpreet, we see unapologetically Harpreet appear on a lot of your social media feeds. Can you tell us where that came from?
So for me, I don't believe that I've taken birth to be liked by all or to win a popularity contest, be it in a personal life or at professional work. I think I am the first person to identify the elephant in the boardroom. I'm the first person to, bell the cat. And I'm not going to apologize for that, just the way I'm not going to apologize for anything that I say on this show. And when I say that, I'm not saying what I'm saying is true and this is what it is. This is what I believe, right? And I accept and respect your views. But I think for me, I'm not going to apologize for something which I believe in, and I'm going to speak my mind for sure.
You've mentioned the self-awareness journey that you've had, and even just personal development in the last 20 years, Harpreet. What led you to being more self-aware about your leadership style and just building some of that inner confidence and self-awareness in your own style?
So for me, so I think the day I started realizing that the problem is not outside, the problem is within me, I started reflecting a lot, right? And as I mentioned that I've learned, I've grown, my leadership style would have, has evolved completely, and I'm still flexible. I'm still work in progress. When you lead, you're with people, they're diverse people, and diversity is not just the gender. And, when I talk about religion, background, experience, even with the same background, same gender, people can be extremely different. I think first it's extremely important to be connected to yourself, and, how do you see yourself? How secure you are? And then the impact on it of an individual. So for me, I've nothing really worked, for my leadership style. I think again, I would say that I've worked on my inner self as a being, and that's where my journey still continues. And I think I'm more connected to myself, and still there are these areas that I need to be working on, and which continues. And I'm pretty open. As I said, I'm a very curious person, and being empathetic has always been, value that I really kind of cherish. And and as I say, the leadership is about not leading, or leadership is about creating that respect, for you when you're not around, right? And I always say that, if somebody has to talk about me, don't talk about the LinkedIn profile or something, but talk about the impact, if I've ever had, on somebody in their personal or professional life. I think that is something which I really cherish on, and that energizes me, to kind of pay forward and work on myself to be a better human being.
Harpreet, if we can actually focus on some of your core values that you live by, can you? I mean, you're indicating in terms of the way you're expressing the way that you just go about life. It's not just work; it's your approach to life. What are some of the values that you hold close to you that you live by?
I think integrity. Integrity. I think it's the topmost. And integrity for me is, what I do behind anybody else. It's not about what I am coming across. I think I have to answer myself. I don't believe in answering anybody else. I think I need to answer myself. So integrity is very, very big. And then, of course, followed by honesty. And then, these two are extremely important for me.
And Harpreet, if we focus on the last, 2020 has been a very difficult year. What does a good day look like for you, particularly in the work that you do, but also the way that you keep yourself healthy and being able to deliver, I guess, the best work in what you do?
So for me, a perfect day would be, clean eating. Starting my day with meditation, that grounds me. That really grounds me. It helps me taking each day as a new day, having some amount of exercise in that day, having some great conversations with family, having some great conversations at work. And it would be a fantastic day if my conversations have inspired or left somebody else in a better state, or if I have been of a value to somebody, I think that would be a fantastic day and something that I would really wish for.
The meditation has been a theme across the 2 days when we ask individuals about some of the rituals that they implement into their own lifestyle. Is meditation, is that something that you've been doing often, or is that something that you've just introduced into your own routine?
So the quest has always been, not always. When my father was diagnosed with cancer, which is like about 5 years back, and we lost him to cancer. I think till that time, life was really hunky dory, and and everything just came standby, and I was extremely close to my father, and that's the time. I think I was like, I need to really ground myself to be able to take care of him in a way that I want to, because we were told that it's his, it's last stage. I was really taken aback and almost on the verge of getting depressed. But then I told myself, when there's no choice, right? There was no choice. And I was like, what can I do? Can I make memories, or can I just lose these days as well? That's the time I started being, being myself intentionally in, silent zones, practicing meditation. And it was a conscious effort. I did go to a couple of places during that time because I was looking for answers outside. And I did a couple of vipassanas and meditations. And end of those sessions, I figured out the answers are within, there's nothing outside. And after that, there has been no looking back. So whenever there's an issue or there are things which are not going great, be it COVID, or I'm sure all of us, keep facing something or the other. I'm like, okay, now what do you do about it, right? This has happened. And I know that the answer is going to come from within and not from anybody else. So, and I practice meditation a lot. And during COVID, I thought, when all of us got behind the Zoom and I was interacting with these 400 women, and I said, things have become even crazier for women. It's like a double task. They have the extra, task of taking care of their extended family back home. And I said, they need to be connected. So which I've never led. I've never led meditation classes. I've always been a participant. I led practice, and I think we did for about 4 months. It was beautiful. And, I think all of us would gain energy from each other. And that's the experience that all of us had to say. So that really helped all of us to stay grounded. And so this is my go-to place. Whenever I'm feeling low or whatever, I would love to get into my meditation mode.
Harpreet, I think just so your photo board that you've got behind you, if we're not mistaken, has a picture of you and the Dalai Lama. Now beforehand, we did sneak the question in, of course, before the interview started. Can you tell us about that experience of meeting the Dalai Lama? And I believe it's not only once.
So, in all humility, I would say, and as I said, I'm not used to listening to no. And there's nothing called impossible in my dictionary. And I'll go all the way. I decide, I make it happen. So this was the time, the same time when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, where do I go? I need some peace. I need to come back. And I decided to go to Dharamshala. It just came to my mind, okay, let me just go. And I wrote to the Dalai Lama, His Highness, and, to his team. And I said, I want to meet him. And I was told that he stopped meeting people, right? And I was like, okay, fair. My intent of going to Dharamshala was not really wanting to meet the Dalai Lama. It was about to get peace, but I was like, why not when he's there? And not that I was into Buddhism before that or something like that. Oh, I remember when I kept the phone down and I told my mom, I said, Mom, you know what? I think this is what they've said. And my mom knows that she's not in a habit of listening to no. And she said, never mind, she'll settle down, right? And, but I think in my mind, it was that one day I will meet him, right? And I didn't make any effort when I landed in Dharamshala. There were circumstances that happened, very strange and uncanny. I got stranded at the airport. There was a strike. I was meeting, and somebody just walks up and says that, so the Prime Minister of Tibet was also stranded on the airport. We were just two people, and somebody just offered. He made it happen. I didn't even ask. Somebody said, would you want to meet the Dalai Lama? And that's the story. So I really believe you have to first win in your mind, right? We give up too easily, right? I'd not given it up, but for me, I think I was in a very disoriented state. But I told myself, one day I will meet him. And I've not just met him, I think I feel privileged enough to have met him thrice. And all 3 times, I've not made an effort.
That's amazing. It sounds like you're at the right place at the right time. But there was also, from what you're saying, there's that belief, and I love how you say, you've got to win in your mind first, and that's almost, whether we believe in manifesting or channeling or not. I think when we call something in, there's more chance of it happening. I think therefore, when opportunities arise, we more actively pursue them because we've kind of gone on the search for them already.
Absolutely, and as they say, the energies go where you focus on. So for me, it's all about go for it and work for it. I mean, I've really worked hard, but then, yes, it's not going to be easy, but then just go for it. If your energy is positive, most likely things will happen. So
I love that, Harpreet. Well, Harpreet, it's now come the time for us to ask you 2 standard questions. They're the same questions we ask everybody, all our impactologists, as we conclude the session. The first one is, if you were on a video call with your 18-year-old self, what would you say to 18-year-old Harpreet?
I think firstly, I'm going to be extremely proud of her. I'm going to be extremely proud of her for challenging the status quo. I'm going to be extremely proud of her for the way she handled the lows in her life, the way she took charge, the way she never played a victim, the way she took care of the family, the way she supported people. I think I would be extremely proud of her. And I would say, you know what, keep it up. One thing I would say, you know what, you've beaten up yourself too much. I know you love yourself, but be a little more kind to yourself. Things are going to fall in place, don't you? Yeah?
Absolutely.
So that's, be a little more easy on yourself.
That's fantastic. All right, now we play what we call word association. So I will say a word and then just say back to me the first word that pops into your mind.
Okay.
Okay, first one, family.
Everything.
Inspiration.
Respect.
Leadership.
Humility.
India.
Love it.
Love.
Beautiful.
And 2021.
Looking forward. Bring it on.
It's a great way to finish. Thank you so much for joining us, Harpreet. We've really enjoyed our conversation with you, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
We'll see you
Rita and
soon.
George.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was my pleasure. And as I said, I'm not going to be apologetic of everything that I said, but I'm sorry if I've said something which if I've hurt anybody's sentiments. So thank you so much. And once again, thank you for having me on this fantastic platform. Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you, Harpreet. So that concludes the speakers for today. It's now just on almost, 5:39 here in Melbourne. So we've got the evening to rest because tomorrow we are back. Tomorrow is day 3 of Impactology Live. We have another 11 speakers for you. Now it is crazy, but we are starting at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning because we think that some of you will be crazy enough like us to be out of bed at that time. We kick off our day with Kirsten Ford-Joan. He's going to be joining us 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The full schedule is on the website, so jump on to www.impactology.com.au where you will see all of the list of speakers.
And also just on YouTube and Facebook as well, just press subscribe or follow on Facebook. That way you'll get notifications of not only the speakers for tomorrow, but as we start posting videos post-event as well. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
See you then.
Cheers.